죽은 자를 기억하는 거. 사랑의 실천 2부 9장을 이어드리겠습니다. 두 번째입니다. But one who is dead makes no repayment. The one who lovingly recollects can perhaps also say, I have a long life ahead of me devoted to recollection. But from the first to the last moment, the prospect is the same. In a certain sense, there is no obstacle at all in the prospect, since there is no prospect whatever. In a certain sense, it is so hopeless, such a thankless work, or in the sense in which the farmer says it, such a discouraging job to recollect one who is dead. One who is dead does not thrive and grow toward the future as a child does. One who is dead merely crumbles away more and more into sudden ruin. One who is dead does not give joy to one recollecting, as the child gives joy to the mother, does not give joy to him as the child gives joy to her. When to her question about whom it loves most, it answers, mother. One who is dead loves no one best. He seems to love no one at all. Oh, it is so disheartening that he remains quiet this way down there in the grave, while the longing for him intensifies. So disheartening that there is no thought of any change except the change of the composition more and more. It is true, of course, that neither is he difficult the way the child can be at times. He does not cause sleepless nights, at least not by being difficult. Oddly enough, the good child does not cause sleepless nights, whereas one who is dead causes more sleepless nights the better he was. Oh, but even with the most difficult child, there is still the hope that and the prospect of the repayment of reciprocal love. But one who is dead makes no repayment whatever. Whether you are sleepless or expectant because of him, or you completely forget him, it seems to make no difference at all to him. If then you wish to test yourself as to whether you love unselfishly, just pay attention to how you relate yourself to one who is dead. Much love, doubtless most, would surely, upon closer examination, prove to be self-love. But the point is that in the love relationship between living persons, there usually is still the hope and the prospect of repayment, at least the repayment of reciprocal love, and ordinarily this repayment does come, but this hope and this prospect, together with the coming of the repayment of it, make one unable to see with complete clarity what is love and what is love, self-love. Because one cannot see with complete clarity whether repayment is expected and in what sense. But in the relationship to one who is dead, the observation is very easy. If human beings were accustomed to love unselfishly, one would surely also recollect the dead differently from the way one ordinarily does. When the first, sometimes rather brief period is over, in which one loves the dead inordinately enough with crying and clamor, the work of love in recollecting one who is dead is a work of the freest love. In order to test properly whether love is honestly free, one can of course remove everything that could in any way extort from one a work of love. But this is absent in the relationship to one who is dead. If love still continues, then this is the freest love. What can extort from one a work of love can be extremely varied and thus cannot be enumerated. The child cries, the pauper begs, the widow pesters, difference constraints, misery compares, etc. But any love in work that is exerted in this way is not free. The stronger the compelling, the less free is the love. Usually we also take this into account with reference to parents' love for their children. If one really wants to depict helplessness and depict it in its most compelling form, one usually draws attention to the infant that lies there in all its helplessness, by which it seemingly extorts love from the parents, seemingly extorts, because it actually extorts love only from the parents who are not what they ought to be. The infant then, in all his helplessness, and yet when an individual first lies in his grave with the 6 feet of earth over him, he is more helpless than the child. But the child cries. If the child could not cry, well, despite this, there would probably be many a father and mother who would tend to it with much love. Oh, but there would probably also be many a father and mother who then would at least many times forget the child. It is not our intention to declare outright that such a father and mother are therefore unloving, but the love in them would still be so weak, so self-loving, that they would need this reminder, this compelling. One who is dead, however, does not cry as the child does. He does not call attention to himself as the needy do. He does not beg as the beggar does. He does not constrain by means of difference. He does not compel by means of visible misery. He does not pastor you as the widow pastors the church. The one who is dead is silent and say not a word. He remains absolutely still and does not stir from the spot, and perhaps does not suffer hardship. There is no one who inconveniences the living less than one who is dead. There is no one easier for the living who avoid than one who is dead. You can leave your child with the strangers in order not to hear its crying. You can refuse to see anybody in order to avoid the blood beseeching of the beggar. You can go around in disguise so that no one will recognize you. In short, in connection with the living, you can use many precautions which perhaps will still not entirely protect you. But in connection with one who is dead, you do not need the slightest precaution and you are still entirely protected. If someone is so inclined, if it best suits his purpose to be rid of one who is dead, the sooner the better he can, without being challenged at all and without becoming the object of any lawsuit, turn cold at approximately the same moment. The one that has become cold, if merely for the sake of common decency, certainly not for the sake of the dead. He remembers to whip a little in the newspaper on the day of the funeral. If he merely takes care to see the one dead the last honor for the sake of common decency, then he can for that matter laugh at the one dead right before his. No, not before his eyes, because they are now closed. One who is dead, of course, has no rights in life. There is no public authority who deals with whether you recollect one who is dead. No public authority who becomes involved in this relationship, as sometimes in the relationship between parents and children, and one who is dead certainly does not himself take any step to inconvenience or compel in any way. Therefore, if we want to test whether you love freely, just watch how over a period of time you relate yourself to one who is dead. If it did not seem so much like jesting, which is assuredly is not, except to someone who does not know what honestness is, I would suggest that over the gate to the garden of the dead there be placed as an inscription, "No compulsion here," or "With us, no compulsion." Yet I do want to say it. I do also want to have said it, and also to stand by having said it. I have thought too much about death not to know that someone who does not know how to use the subtlety or the roguishness of a profundity that resides in death for awakening note well that such a person cannot speak honestly about it. Death is not honestness in the same way as the eternal that is. To the honestness of death belongs that remarkable capacity for awakening, this resonance of a profound mockery that, detached from the thought of the eternal, is an empty, often praised jest, but together with the thought of the eternal is just what it should be, and is utterly different from the insipid, the honestness that least of all captures and holds the thought that has the intention the thought of death has. 여기까지. There is so much talk in the world about the necessity for love to be free, that one cannot love as soon as there is the slightest compulsion, that with regard to love there must be no constraint at all. Well, let us see. When it gets down to brass tacks, how it stands with this free love, how the dead are recollected in love, since one who is dead in no way compels anyone. Yes, in the moment of separation, when one cannot get along without the one who is dead, then there is crying. Is this the much discussed free love? Is this love for the one who is dead? Then little by little, as the one dead gradually crumbles away, so also does the recollection crumble away between the fingers. One does not know what becomes of it little by little, but one becomes free of this burdensome recollection. But to become free in this way is this the free love, is this love for the one who is dead. The proverb says, out of sight, out of mind. We can always be sure that proverb speaks truthfully about how things go in the world. It is quite another matter that in the Christian sense, every proverb is untrue. If everything that is said about loving freely were true, that is, if it happens, if it were carried out, if people were accustomed to love in this way, then people would also love the dead differently from the way they do. But the point is that in connection with other human love, there usually is something compelling, daily sight and habit, if nothing else, and therefore one cannot definitely see whether it is love that freely holds its object from, or it is the object that in some way compelling lends a hand. But in the relation to the dead, everything becomes clear. Here there is nothing compelling at all. On the other hand, the loving recollection of the dead has to protect itself against the actuality around one, lest through even new impressions it acquire full power to wipe out the recollection. And it has to protect itself against time. In short, it has no guard its freedom in recollection against that which wants to compel one to forget. The power of time is great. In time, we may not perceive this because time slightly steals from one a little at a time. Perhaps we will really find this out for the first time in eternity, when we will once more and in retrospect examine what we, with the help of time and the 40 years, have managed to pack up. Yes, time is a dangerous power. In time, it is so easy to begin over again from the beginning and then forget where one left off. Therefore, even when one begins to read a very big book and does not quite trust one's memory, one puts marks in the book. But with regard to one's whole life, how often a person forgets to put in marks in order to be able to take note properly, and now through the years to have to recollect one who is dead. Alas, while he does not think at all to help, but instead, if he does anything or by doing nothing at all, does everything to show one how indifferent he is to it. Meanwhile, life's multiple invitations beckon to one, the living beckon to one, and say, come to us, we will like you. The one does. The one dead, however, cannot beckon. Even if it were his desire, he cannot beckon. He can do nothing at all. To bind us to himself, he cannot move a finger. He lies there and crumbles away. How easy for the powers of life and of the moment to overcome such a weakling. There is no one as helpless as one who is dead, while in his helplessness he exerts unconditionally, not the slightest compulsion. There no love is as free as the work of love that recollects one who is dead. Because to recollect him is something different from not being able to forget him at first. The work of love in recollecting one who is dead is a work of the most fruitful love. In order to test properly whether a person's love is faithful, everything can of course be removed whereby the object in any way help him to be faithful. But all this is absent in relationship to one who is dead. One is no actual object. If love then continues, this love is the most faithful. Not